Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Brendan, the Marketing Director for PTG. And with us today is Graham Cobb, the Customer Experience Director for PTG.
Hello.
And we hope that you got your invite from Gage or Joseph, two members of our solutions team. And we are happy to talk to you today about 5 work from home strategies. And if you happen to be listening in and you want to say hello, use the live chat feature to identify yourself and we'll give you a shout out. Otherwise, we're going to jump right in. This presentation was actually put together by our CEO and founder, Reed Wilson. And it's a lot of the strategies that we use here at PTG. And Reed couldn't make the broadcast today, but if any business owners want to discuss specific productivity solutions or technology solutions, he would be happy to make some time on his schedule for that. So keep that in mind. And I think we are going to also provide you guys with this handout, the 5 strategies for working from home. And we're not gonna read this to you because your solution specialist is gonna be sending you the document. And this document is a perfect thing to go over with your team during a huddle or to use on your own to kind of build some better work systems for yourself during this challenging time. So instead of reading it to you, we're going to kind of go off the page a little bit, talk about some specific solutions. And please stick around to the end because when we get to communication and productivity, we're also going to talk about some specific products that we have found to be very useful for being more productive and increasing business value. So to start with, the first strategy that we're going to talk about today is routine. And you guys have probably read tons of articles already about how it's important to get dressed and to get up at a normal time when you're working from home. We want to take that a little bit further today, and we want to talk about how the successful strategy for a routine, if you're trying to set a good morning routine, it actually starts the night before. And one strategy that I personally use is I really enjoy Microsoft To Do, the simple checklist that I can set the night before. I also set my workspace the way that I want it to be. It's one of the last things that I look at. And if you're worried about looking at your screen or blue light sensitivity right before bed, you can also use just a simple written worksheet, works the same way. But the important thing is to actually write the routine, the type of morning that you want to have the night before. And I think Graham also has some ideas for some successful routines that he has recently started to use. Graham, do you want to talk about one of those?
Yeah. We're obviously a big Microsoft shop, so big into Microsoft Teams. One of my favorite tools within the Teams ecosystem is Planner. And so, to your point, Brendan, I love to make sure that before I start, let's say today, every day seems to run into each other nowadays. So today is Wednesday. So before I go into Thursday, I can quickly look at what my team is going to be doing, what task I've assigned to them, and then on a monthly, very high level overview, I can see if those tasks are on time, if they're behind, or if they're on hold.
Great. Another one that our CEO really swears by is when he's not in meetings and he's doing focused work, he likes to work on a project for 45 minutes and then get up from his desk and take a 15-minute walking break. Now, he will answer phone calls during that time if it's a really busy period, but the important thing is that he's at his desk for 45 minutes and he's up and active for 15 minutes out of every hour. And he likes to try to keep that schedule as much as possible. Obviously, meetings and other things of importance, take precedent over that. But that's a great strategy you might want to try out. It's important to get up and move around, and also to go outside and get some sunshine during your day. We're going to move on to the next strategy, which is actually your workspace. And one of the things that we help out a lot with our customers is helping them set up their monitors, help them set up their work areas the way that they want to. And you may have seen some things on this. You can actually use your television or a spare television as a second monitor. If you're used to having two monitors in the office and you're feeling a little bit handicapped by just using your one computer screen or your laptop screen, if you would like a tutorial on how to use a television as a second monitor, let us know. Drop something in the chat or send an email, and we'd be happy to give you that information as well.
I think the largest I've seen so far is about 55 inches, Brendan.
That's right.
So people sending those in.
I think our engineer Tom said that he's enjoying his television monitor way more than his monitor. It's so much bigger than his monitor at work.
Yeah. So when we get back to work, if everybody's got the TVs on there, you're right.
Another thing I wanted to talk about is we are on screen so much, and the glasses I'm actually wearing right now are blue light blocking glasses there for eye fatigue. It's important when you're working, and for some reason, even in remote situations, this becomes even more, you tend to be on your screen even more because the office has some natural distractions that working from home doesn't. So you need to make sure that you're getting away from your screen a little bit every few hours. And studies have shown, actually, this is interesting, that if you go outside in the morning, it actually helps with melatonin production later on in the day. So it helps you to unwind after work when you take those outside breaks during your regular work time. There's also, good things to eat when you're trying to stay productive are things like bananas, oranges, almonds, walnuts, flaxseed. All these things help you to stay focused, but then also help your body to naturally unwind at the end of the day. So there's some really interesting science based around that that I've found useful. Graham, do you have anything you'd like to add on workplace setup?
So one thing that we did when we decided to, and we still have some people in the office, we're just rotating them due to the CDC guidelines. We realized that people work best how their desk is set up at the office, and that as they go home, they may not have all those tools and gadgets available. So we created a Microsoft form to allow our employees to check out items from the office. So that way, when things do go back to how they were, we can actually audit those items and make sure that we provide everybody with nice headsets, noise canceling headsets. Make sure we get those items back when they come back. So just a way to give people a way to work from home as comfortable and as productive as they would be in the office, with also making sure your stuff, as we call it, doesn't grow legs later on.
Yes, definitely. Very good. Just making sure we're not getting any questions coming in via email at the moment. Okay. So let's move on here. I want for us to spend some time talking about these three here. So breaks, communication, and productivity. And one thing, if any of you manage employees, you have reports, it can be a little bit, if you haven't worked in a remote situation before, it can be a little unnerving, a little stressful. You're thinking, what are these people doing all day? I don't have the usual visibility that I do in the office. It's important to, in a remote situation, to not be so concerned with tracking time as tracking what gets done. So for example, at PTG, all of our departments have KPIs and a performance matrix, and our supervisors and our leadership team, they're more concerned with the evidence of what's getting done, and they sort of let the employees self-manage when it comes to things like break time and even the flexibility within the work time. For example, our help desk engineers who are answering the calls and dealing with tickets all day, they're measured on CSAT score, customer satisfaction, and number of closed tickets, in addition to a few other metrics. Graham, maybe you'd like to talk about how our customer experience team sort of keeps track of how they're performing.
Yeah. So I like to rely on going back to thinking about our foundation. So Teams is where we keep all of our information. Surprisingly enough, it's funny that used to go back to looking at Outlook right when you woke up, and now to me, I'm looking in Teams to see what's going on. So I have some metrics set up for the inside sales team that I update every afternoon. Some of it's automated through Power BI within Office 365. Some of it's just manual, but my team can go there and see where do we look or where do we stand as a team. Since we are in sales, it's always an internal competition, healthy, of course, and so those numbers are there, so my team can see, who's where based on each other. But it takes away the mystery of where do we stand and what are our next steps by having it all in one place. With the communication within Teams, status lights, that's huge for me, because as you don't want to micromanage, but you also want to make sure that if you see a yellow light, which means away for somebody for a decent amount of time, that you figure out what's going on there. But I like the fact that even though we're not a few steps away from each other, I can see when Taylor or Jay maybe are in a meeting, or if they're away for lunch, or if they're just busy, and I can respect their privacy versus kind of opening up the door and asking what's going on.
Yeah, definitely. And Teams really does make those status updates very convenient to see. If you're not using Teams, I would encourage you to find a program that makes it very easy to see someone's status when they're available, when they're away, when they're on a call, because it really helps, especially in a work from home situation. Another thing just to touch on real quick, just to get back to the performance matrix, that's something, if you're not already using it at your company, just Google it. There's tons of examples and templates you can use, but a few of the things you can measure for different employee departments, you can measure things like number of calls for sales, number of invoices processed, anything that can be quantified can basically become part of someone's performance matrix. And so, having those one-on-ones with the employees, and instead of saying, what did you do today, or how much time did you spend, working today, actually talking about those specific quantifiable figures is a great way to stay productive in a work from home situation. So moving on, we want to spend the bulk of our time and the remaining time on the last two things here, communication and productivity. We feel like at PTG, we have pretty much become the experts of these areas because we've been a Microsoft shop for so long now that we've found out a lot of helpful solutions that can help people to work better. So talking about communication, one of the things we've found really helpful is that whatever meetings were going to be in-person meetings that have now been hindered because of these new work from home scenarios, make those video chats. It's the next best thing to in-person, and try to keep them scheduled. If they're a regularly scheduled meeting, try to keep them at the regular time that you would have them. It's very important to try to keep the same cadence of meetings that you would normally have. Now, I would also add that this is a great time. This is a perfect opportunity to sort of evaluate the meetings that you have scheduled and really determine which ones are essential. Because as we've seen with people transitioning to remote work, some of the things that we did in the office maybe weren't as productive as they could have been. So this is a great opportunity to kind of evaluate those processes. And if your company is still sending out company-wide emails, I'm just going to say you're doing it wrong. So you need to. I mean, no, that's a little harsh, but basically, we use general channels in Teams when we need to let the whole company know. Another great option is to do a town hall style video when you need to let people know things. But you need to develop a system where you can actually keep track of who's getting the message and who's paying attention. And company-wide emails just aren't as efficient for that. Graham, what would you like to touch on when it comes to communication?
So I think Reed made a comment early on around when we meet, let's turn on camera, and also we get it that people are working from home. There's dogs, there's children. Depending on where you are in your house, I'm near the front of our house, so people are going to walk around. Let's just kind of put that to the wayside and just continue as business as usual. I think with everybody being so busy and just being in the IT space where you got to have everything yesterday, oftentimes we forget to pat people on their back and say, "Hey, Brendan, Joseph, Gage, thanks for doing what I need you to do today." Or if a customer sends some kudos over, that kind of gets lost in the translation because often we hear about the negative instead of the positive. So one thing I absolutely love, everybody on the team knows I love it. Anytime I interact with a customer and they say anything positive about a member of our team, there's a little praise button you can select, kind of how the praise is coming from. Maybe it's a thank you or courage or team player. And I'd love to just let the team know that we're all human beings. We're all in this together. And that people appreciate their work because ultimately we're trying to help people be more productive and more secure while doing what they need to do at their primary role.
Yeah, that's a great point, Graham. I mean, Graham is really good at doling out praise and keeping morale high. And I think that is so important right now when people are feeling very high stress levels. Now is also a great time, if you were considering gamifying employee incentives or something like that, now is a great time to implement something like that. But something just as simple as publicly acknowledging an employee who did a stellar job goes a really long way. Another thing that we've done at PTG that has been very helpful for morale is just organizing some virtual hangouts. So having a virtual happy hour after work, for example, or sharing pictures of people's dogs or kids doing something funny, keep morale high and just increase that camaraderie, because that's a lot of what's missing from the office environment is that water cooler type of camaraderie. But it doesn't have to be missing because you can use your tools like Teams or Slack or wherever you are to keep that going throughout the day. And to schedule some specific times after work for people to participate in some fun activities like that. And if you have one that you would suggest that's worked really well, drop it in the chat. We'd love to shout that out as well.
Which, Brendan, we need to set up another virtual happy hour maybe for this Friday too.
That's right. Yeah, I'll get right on that. I'm going to send the invites out. We definitely need to do that again. It's always fun to see where your workers are too, like in their different houses and setups. So the last thing that we are going to touch on, and I want to spend the remainder of the time on this, is productivity. And you may not know this, but PTG actually has a free productivity course. We've had many people go through this course and say that it's been very helpful. It's a 4-week course. You get two lessons. The lessons take about 5 to 10 minutes to complete, so it's not going to be a big, time suck in your day. You get 2 lessons a week for 4 weeks, And one of the first things, it's interesting, we send these to your email inbox. You sign up for one of the first things that we cover is cleaning out that email clutter, organizing whether you're using Gmail or Outlook or a different email provider. We're telling you the types of filters, the types of folders that you need to have to get your inbox under control, because we hear all the time from people that that's one of the biggest productivity hindrances that they have. I found this stat to be just amazing. The average employee spends 2 hours a day just looking for documents that they need. So if you average that out, I mean, in a week, you're spending the equivalent of one full day of work just looking for things. Now, how we avoid that at PTG is, everything that we do is in a cloud file solution. We use SharePoint for internal intranet stuff. We use OneDrive for collaboration on documents and for sharing final documents. And that is so important right now. If you need to discipline yourself and you need to start using a cloud file solution for all of your work related documents. Don't send people attachments and emails because it's too easy for them to get lost, especially if these are unfinished documents. It's too easy to not keep track of what is the final document. And Graham, I think you have some other good examples or things you want to talk about with that.
Well, my debate on what I want to say here, and I think I just want to throw out kind of the ultimate cheat with all of this is if you're all in with Microsoft Teams, everything in Teams is searchable. So now that's probably not what you wanted to hear, Brendan, but for me, as long as I know it's in Teams, whether if I'm talking to a colleague or sharing a file, the search bar at the top will search people, conversations, files, channels, and sub-teams. And as long as what you're searching for is actually within one of those different areas, it's going to pull it up, which to me is super powerful because, yeah, we do a really good job of keeping things organized. But for me, I can turn it on, and even on my phone on the app, if I need to search for, latest call down or last time we did a strategic business review with one of our customers, boom, 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 hit search, and then there's everything about it in one spot.
Yeah,
And,
definitely.
then I can go back to, let's say if the last time, I talked to Jay about a strategic business review for X, Y, and Z, customers can bring up all that together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one thing I love about Teams is that file tab. It has everything that you've just recently
Everything.
interacted with people. And we also, because we developed a Teams training course last year, if you specifically want help on file management within Teams, that's something that we can work with you on a one-on-one basis or even train your department on. So that's something I'll throw out there as well. A couple of other tools that we use: Microsoft Planner, which I think was already mentioned earlier, and also Microsoft Flow. And I don't know how many people are familiar with Flow, but basically it's automation. And if anyone has read James Clear's awesome book, Atomic Habits, I highly recommend it. He talks a lot about automating processes as a way to be more productive. And what Flow has is it has some built-in flows, some automations, things that you may do already every day that you can set up these flows and sort of automate processes to save yourself time. So that's definitely something you want to check out if you're already a 365 user. If not, I would encourage you to make a list of, work tasks that you do every day and ask yourself, what can I automate to save time? What am I wasting time doing that could be an automated process that I can just create a workflow to run in the background? Because that is going to go a long way. James Clear says you spend a little bit of time setting up the right system, it's going to save you so much time exponentially down the road. So just wanted to throw that out there. And we have 5 minutes left. So I haven't seen anybody active on the chat. I see a few people listening in. If you have any specific questions, please post them now, and we would love to address those. Otherwise, I will post, let me post the link to that productivity course. So you'll see that come through there. If you would like to take that journey, I highly recommend it. Some great tips and tricks in there, and I guarantee there are probably some apps and tools mentioned in that course that you've never heard of but would want to know about. So definitely check that out. And I would also say with productivity, look into things like the Pomodoro method or some other things to kind of structure your day. My wife is a big fan of setting different types of timed alarms throughout the day. So she'll determine that she's going to work on a specific thing for a specific amount of time and then set that timer. And when that timer goes off, she's going to move on to another task. So, you might want to look into some solutions like that. Graham, any closing tidbits or ideas you want to throw out there?
To your point about the flow, Microsoft's done a really good job of canning a bunch of different just ways that they think flow could be used. So a lot of that is already written for you. You just need to dive in there. One of the biggest things we see is maybe like an approval for time off or an expense report. And so we've seen a couple customers use it to where, Brendan, let's pretend you're my boss. I'm going to sign off to say, hey, I'm going to take tomorrow and Friday off. It needs to go to you. It really takes the guesswork out of what the next steps are. As long as you say yes or no, if it's a no, it's going to come back to me. If it's a yes, it's going to make its way to the next level up so it can be documented. And it's something you don't have to go back and search for. It just makes life so much better.
That's right. And I almost forgot, I wanted to also talk about Microsoft Learning Paths. And this is something that we have just started setting up for our customers. And basically, if you need a specific solution in something like Teams or OneDrive or anything that's part of the Microsoft ecosystem, we can create a learning path that will basically onboard your employees, take them through step by step how to get up to speed on this specific solution, SharePoint, OneDrive, whatever it is. And people have found that really helpful. It's great for new hires, and it's great for also everyone has those people in their office that are really slow to adopt to the new technology and say, no, I've got my system and that's okay. Well, when you create that learning path for them, it makes adoption and change management so much easier for people because it gives them the direction that they need to go. So if you're interested in learning more about learning paths, just reach out to us and we can give you some more information on that as well. So we hope that these solutions and these 5 strategies have been helpful to people. Just to recap real quickly, I'll go back over. We touched on routine, workspace, breaks, communication, and productivity. So if you think of any specific questions after we end the broadcast today, you can contact us. Also, your solution specialist will be in touch to take the conversation further and see what resources we can provide you with to help you work better wherever you need to. So we want to thank you guys for tuning in today. We will also make the recording available for anyone who missed it or came in late. Graham, you got anything else you want to say?
Let's just finish out this week strong. Thanks for taking the time to join us today.
Yeah, thank you guys. We appreciate it, and we look forward to talking to you soon. Take care.